Hey folks, so here's a pretty quick video just to get you thinking about some interpretive questions before you read Omelas, or just to fill out the assignment for the week about Omelas, the ones who walked away from Omelas. All right, so these are in line with other videos that I've done and other discussions that we've had. But I wanted to kind of shape some ways of getting into your interpretive side for Omelas, okay? So the first one is basically drawing out the symbols and themes of Omelas. What do you think is the relationship between the import of happiness and the contrast with that child and squalor, right? If we can get just a crisp statement of that relationship, I think we've really gotten into what's going on here in the story, right? So what do you think that relationship is, right? Those seem to be the biggest chunks going on in the description of the story, from my perspective at least. So just start to consider that, right? Also, one of the things that's described in the narrative are the different ways that people are responding to the child. What do you think is motivating these different kinds of responses, right? There isn't a given way that the townsfolk respond, right? The storyteller has a plurality of people in the original description of the city, and a plurality of responses to the child. So in the original few pages, everything's great and jolly and very happy, very pluralistic, but that seems like a good thing. Is it a good thing that everybody is responding to the child differently? Are there good and bad ways that we're meant to see in the response to the child? What do you take the different motivations to be? Are some good or some bad? What's your take on that? Also, what do you think motivates some to walk away? How much information do we get about that? So, interesting things here. In line with our discussions of how much is left up to the reader and how much is explicitly disclosed by the storyteller, what do you take the storyteller to intend the response to be to the ones who walk away? Is this part of the story that is itself aiming at objectivity? Do you think it's intended for a response given the overall narration of the story? So think about what the author is attempting to convey or get a response from the ones who walk away. Consider whether you're having that intended response, right? So a few things here. What do you think motivates the ones who walk away? And then consider what the storyteller is intending the audience to think about the ones who walk away. Ultimately, let's consider what the author's purpose is in telling the story. Do you think there's an intended moral? This might be connected to the questions I just asked, like the relationship between happiness and the child, the kinds of motivations involved in the people who are viewing the child multiple times, the ones who walk away and why they do that. What are the appropriate responses to the child or the relationship between the happiness and the child, right? See if you think there is a moral to the story. Extra bonus points. Metaphorically speaking, if you can tie that to how you're seeing the importance of the format, like why is it being told that way? Does that help get the moral across? One thing to think about also is what would you do you think? Would you walk away? Would you do something different? I think this is a really important question given the storytelling aspect. There aren't too many options being presented in the story. So one thought is the author might be not telling us some of the options that actually exist, as I discussed in my previous video. Or the authors might be leading us to a conclusion about the only options that exist, right? So in fact, in Omelas, these might be the only things happening, there might be things happening in Omelas that the author doesn't say, or just outside the story, if you were there, you might do something different. Okay, so those are 3 options you might think about. And finally, one thing I like to think about with this story is related to that, right? So if you took what's written as canon, and then you were to do something like fanfic, right? So consider that what you take the moral of the story to be, take what's written as canon, and then imagine what you could fill in or change to change the moral of the story. So if you take the moral of the story to be something about the relationship between the perfection of the city and the presence of the child, like some kind of necessary connection or something, how could you fill in something about the nature of the city, or how the child exists, or how people relate to the child, in order to make it a different story? So without changing things that are written, could you change the moral of the story? That's a complex question, but I like thinking about changing stories and basically subverting the purpose of stories. Okay, so those are some interpretation questions that I invite you to think about. The questions that I'm assigning you to think about are going to be up on our Canvas site under this module. So thank you for listening. This is the final video on Omelas. I hope you're having a great day. Bye.